All right, all right. Welcome everyone. I see we have two viewers already.
Oh wow.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. We'll give everybody about a minute to get everybody else coming in slowly before we get started here. But in the meantime, for folks that have joined us already, if you don't mind putting in the chat or in your comments where you're watching us from, that would be really awesome to know where everybody is watching from. I'm personally hosting from the East Coast in Virginia, and Stephen, our guest today. Where are you joining us today from, Stephen?
Hey everyone, I'm tuning in from Seattle.
Nice, Seattle. Is it? I'm guessing it's very cloudy, or am I just? It's always rainy over there, from what it seems.
Yeah, I think today's a little cloudy. We've had a couple of sunny days this past week, so it's not all clouds and rain up here.
All right, awesome, awesome. I've never been there, but I hear a lot of good stuff about that place.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Nice. Yeah, so we've got some awesome responses in the chat. We have, all right, I see a lot of folks here. See Caroline, Sergio, Sailesh from India, a LinkedIn user from India. I see people from Kenya. There's writing in Swahili there. Caroline from Boston, my teammate. Awesome. Prabhu from Tennessee. Awesome. Good folks here. I see Sergio Sanchez from Spain. Oh, awesome. Ravel Bell from LA. A LinkedIn user from Dubai. Andrej from Latvia. Tony Holler from Boston. Perpendicular AI. That's an interesting name. Obviously, Cape Town. Awesome. I like that. Another LinkedIn user from Utah. Salvatore from Italy. Duri from Dominican Republic, Priya from New Jersey, Raja from Pennsylvania, Pritam from Canada, Louise from Ghana, Tufik from Nigeria. Awesome. A lot of representation on the map here. Really love it. Alugbenga from Pretoria, Ujwal from Pondicherry, India. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Antonin from France. Awesome, awesome. Keep it coming. That's awesome. So, yeah, that's glad to have everybody on here today watching, and we have a great session today. And before we get started, if this is your first time tuning in, this is our second live event where we interview guests from the Streamlit ecosystem, and we get to be able to share what they're building with Streamlit at the same time. So this is a great event to be part of. And before we get started, if you have any questions throughout this event while we're talking to our guest, if you have any questions for me or our guest here, make sure to add it in your comments, just the way you're adding it right now, telling us where you're joining from. Do the same for questions as well. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce our guest today. Our guest today is Steven Krawczyk, the co-founder of Hegel AI. Welcome, Steven.
Hey, thanks, Tony. Great to meet everybody. I'm Steve.
Awesome, awesome. Steve is joining us from Seattle, if you're joining in, and he's also the co-founder of Hegel AI. So I see a lot of people still chiming in. I'll call you out later with where you're joining from, so keep it coming. And so before we even get started here and move forward, so we just want to get a sneak peek preview of who you are and
Yeah,
what's your background. Tell us a bit about that.
yeah, of course. So, like you said, I'm one of the co-founders of Hegel AI. We build open source developer tools for large language model based applications. Before that, I was a software engineer at Google, where I worked on the PyTorch framework and integrating it into Google's infrastructure.
Oh, awesome! That's amazing, and it's great to see how you've kind of progressed from being just a Python developer, building some core AI tools to the point where you have actually starting a company that kind of revolves around this space. And if I'm
Yep.
not wrong, your co-founder as well is very embedded within this space of the AI. Was also working on something super similar to what you're doing.
You're right. Yeah. So my co-founder was at Meta, where he was also working on PyTorch. So both of us were deep into Python development. And when we were building our product for Hegel AI, we needed to build a front end, and we knew Python a lot better than we knew JavaScript. So Streamlit was an obvious choice for us.
Yes, balloons. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, same here. That's amazing. And so I know you've touched a bit about this, but what's the backstory of Hegel AI? How did it How did this start?
Yeah, absolutely. So my co-founder and I were working on ML infrastructure before we started this company, and we noticed that well, all of these new open source models were popping up, and all these new use cases for AI were being discovered. It was still really difficult to evaluate which LLMs, what prompts, how to fine tune for specific use cases, and we wanted to build tools that would enable developers to experiment and evaluate their models, their prompts, and their fine tuning iterations so that they could find the right fit for their applications.
Yes, and this is something that a lot of developers, and I'm sure most of our audience right now, have probably faced at some point. If you built an LLM app recently, it's something
Mhm.
that you run into a lot. From even picking what model should I use for my specific use case. So I
Mhm.
think what you're building here is something that kind of does actually solve that problem for the most part. And with that same line, can you elaborate a bit about the primary challenges that developers face when working with LLMs generally, from your viewpoint, and also how does Hegel AI address this issue specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure we've all had bad experiences with LLM hallucinations, and I think that's one of the biggest things we hear pain points about is that LLMs aren't doing what we tell them to. And we build tools to enable developers to iterate on their prompts, to try out different models, and to experiment with fine tuning different models to figure out what is going to work best for their use case, what's going to hallucinate least frequently, and what's going to give their customers the best experience. And so I think that is really the biggest problem with these LLM based applications because they're non deterministic, they
Yeah.
hallucinate, and we need to address that.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a recurring theme with hallucinations,
Yeah.
with especially with the new models that are coming out and the previous old ones. There's been things that have like been done as well to kind of solve this, and I'm more interested to hear kind of what are the use cases or particular use cases that you've seen being used with your product.
Yeah, so one of our users is leveraging LLMs to extract information from transcripts and summarize what's gone on during sales calls. And they get feedback from their customers that a summary is missing an important detail or it hallucinates a detail that's not actually in the transcript. When they get that feedback from their customers, they need to go back to their LLM system and iterate on the prompt or iterate on the context that they're passing in through the context window to make changes and deploy a better version of their application. They can use Hegel AI's prompt tools to
Okay.
run experiments across all of the different modifications they want to try and automatically evaluate those different iterations at scale so that they can confidently move forward with a new version of their prompt that addresses their customers' complaints.
Oh, right. That's interesting. So that also kind of cuts down the time, right? If I'm not wrong, the time of spending the time curating these prompts and also fine tuning it to make sure that it does produce what is kind of needed here.
Exactly. So iteration time is cut down to improve your prompts, to curate fine tuning data, and to deploy updates to your model and improve your app over time.
Awesome, awesome. And you definitely did mention prompt tools here. So,
Mhm.
kind of jumping into that specific topic, I know you've integrated Streamlit, and Streamlit is kind of like the main front end for your prompt tools
Right.
application here. So, what prompted you to use Streamlit in the first place?
Yeah. In July, one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got was that people wanted a playground or a UI to be able to experiment visually instead of always relying on running scripts or going to notebooks, which is the primary way we encourage people to interact with the SDK. Streamlit gave us a way to relatively quickly put together a front end that enables developers to share LLM experiments with other folks in their organization, whether it's a product manager or a data scientist, so that those folks don't have to comb through notebooks or scripts to run those same experiments.
Yeah, that's very good to hear. And I know a lot of folks, probably on the audience as well, have experience with Streamlit. It does definitely does make it much easier, and especially you being, Python developer like you mentioned. So it does create
Right.
that ease of kind of integrating that. And just to shout out to the folks in our listener section, I see a lot of comments there. Keep them coming and keep the questions coming in as well. And our guest will be able to answer them at the end of this session as well. So with what you've mentioned here with prompt tools, so that's very interesting. That so folks today can go to the link that we'll provide as well,
Mhm.
and go to prompt tools and be able to play around with that app and you know test and do the experiments on there and figure out which maybe which LLM should I use or which vector database should I use for my use case.
Mhm.
So with the implementation of such an app, did you run into any issues using Streamlit when
Yeah,
building?
it's a good question. So there were some frictions using Streamlit for sure. I think hooking up my GitHub account to the community cloud, the way the community cloud deals with requirements, there were some issues just with managing the complexity of a state when it comes to a front end app like this. But overall, I think the Streamlit, the forums are incredibly helpful. Every time I've had a problem, I post there and I get a response really quickly. So I would say, for whatever frictions there have been, it's easy to get a problem solved because the community is great.
Absolutely, that's awesome. Glad to hear that the community has been really helpful throughout your journey. And
Yeah.
anybody else starting up with Streamlit, definitely highly recommend going to our community forum. You'll find some great answers that people already face those challenges and solved.
Mhm.
And so, can you explain a bit about how the prompt tools library handles the LLM calls and also the security of API keys, especially from the app itself? There's a portion where a user has to enter the API key, their
Yeah.
OpenAI API key, or whatever LLM API key, and
Right.
then use that. So how's that handled?
Yeah, so our app is bring your own keys, and that's the best way for us to support the quota and the rates that our users need. We couldn't do that all with just our API keys because we're limited. But the way it works is we never store or even see your API keys. If you're running our Streamlit UI locally, then the requests are sent directly from your laptop to the LLM provider, OpenAI, for example, and so your API key never passes through a backend server that we have. And similarly, if you're running in the Streamlit community cloud at prompttools.streamlit.app, it goes directly from the container in the Streamlit community cloud to the LLM provider. And so we never see those API keys. They're going directly from the client to the provider.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That's great to hear because yeah, I'm sure a lot of folks would have definitely maybe had that question in mind,
Yeah.
and just to kind of clear that as well. And nothing is being stored in the servers as well, so
Mhm.
your keys are safe. You bring your safe, your keys, you use it, and then you're able to interact like how you would build your own app and interact with them directly.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
Streamlit provided some good best practices around building apps with API keys.
Yes, yes. Always use your secrets, SD secrets.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. So with that said as well, are there features that kind of allow users to persist the test and experiment results to whatever they want to persist it to?
Have better support for so that you can come back to them over time. Right now, the best way to persist experiments is using our SDK. You can export your experiments in multiple formats, but that's how we handle persistence.
Awesome, awesome. That, and folks can learn about more of this going to your repo and also your company page, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the repo is Hegel AI / prompt tools, and we can put the link in the chat later on too. And
Yes.
our website is hegel-ai.com. You can sign up for the waitlist, and we'll reach out with an email to talk to you a little bit more about the beta that we're launching later this month.
Awesome, awesome. So let's get right into the interesting part, the demo part. So
Yeah,
let's fire it up and get started with the demo so that folks can see how they can use Hegel AI today.
awesome. So this demo, say for example, you were creating an application that was a math tutor, and your first question is, should you be using GPT 3.5 or 4? So 3.5 is cheaper, but maybe 4 is smarter. And so we'll take the same prompt and we'll give it to both. And it's, you're a helpful math tutor. When given a question, answer correctly and explain your answer. And then we'll enter a couple of prompts to test it on math. So we'll say, what's 10 times 10? Is 2 a prime number? And is 17077 a prime number? And the GPT models are famously bad at this last one, so it should be interesting.
Yes.
And so now in the background, all of these requests are running asynchronously. What we do is we take the Cartesian product of your system prompts and user messages so that we can get you a grid of the outputs to evaluate.
Nice. So, and just so we kind of have a clear explanation here. So, we which LLMs are we comparing against?
Yeah, so here we have OpenAI's GPT 3.5 Turbo
Yes.
against OpenAI's GPT 4. And so the question is, do you need to spend more money on tokens for GPT 4, or could you just run your same prompt on 3.5? And
Yes.
it looks like here, they both get the first question right. 3.5 actually seems to get this one wrong. And then it looks like 3.5 gets the last one right, but 4 actually gets it wrong. And so you can see here there's differences between the models. And right now we're just manually evaluating, but with the SDK, we can actually run these evaluations automatically, either using another language model or using semantic similarity or some other structured output validation. But this is interesting. You can see the difference in performance between these two models.
Yes, absolutely. That's very interesting. And so, with I know you've shown the two different LLMs there. What other APIs do you support?
Yeah, so in addition to just the OpenAI models, we support Anthropic, we support Google Palm and Vertex. If you're running our app locally, you can use Llama CPP for local models, and then we also support the Hugging Face Hub and Replicate. We're always looking for new integrations, and we're totally open source. So if there's something you want to see there that you don't see, feel free to open a PR in our repo.
Nice, nice. Yes, it's Hacktoberfest, folks.
Right.
Get your PRs in if you see
Totally.
something interesting for sure. Awesome. So, is there anything that else that we want to cover on this demo that maybe I've
Uh,
missed?
Yeah, so the one thing I would say is once you have your model picked out, you can use the same system to compare. Just for example, if you want to save tokens on your system message, you can sort of see, do you need the full system message or can you just use this shorter version? And we'll just do this with one prompt so that it runs a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But this is just to show off that there are multiple modes that you can run our playground in, whether it's to compare between models or just between system prompts for the same model. And then the last thing I would highlight is when you want to automatically evaluate those LLM responses, you can move to our SDK where we have built-in functions like auto-eval binary scoring that tells you when an LLM is answering a question correctly or not. So
Nice.
that's the Prompt Tools Playground.
That's pretty useful. Is so how would you direct somebody that's just kind of new learning about prompt tools? Should they start with the prompt tools playground, or and then kind of navigate towards the Colab notebook, or how would you advise?
Yeah, so it depends on what they're most comfortable with. If you go to our GitHub repo, which is at Hegel AI/prompt tools, you can go through our README, which gives you an introduction to how to run our evaluations in the notebook or in the playground. And then it comes down to what you're trying to accomplish. The notebook or the SDK is better for running automatic evaluations at scale. The playground is better for manual evaluations and inspecting LLM responses visually.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so I think that's a really great starting point for folks to kind of jump in and experiment with this, because I think this is a really great tool to help you in your development process faster, making those decisions first in the beginning, so that you avoid kind of downstream having to revert back to this main question of, did I choose the right LLM? Did I choose the right vector database? So I think this is very useful indeed.
Yeah, and even over time, as you're iterating on those prompts in response to customer feedback or as customer behavior changes, we see people coming back to prompt tools again and again to iterate on those prompts and improve their applications.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so it's kind of a cycle. You start there, but you still come back to make sure, because it's never perfect anyways. Requirements change. So
Exactly. And because these LLMs are non-deterministic, you're never going to have the perfect prompt or the perfect 100% customer success rate. And you need to always be improving that in response to the feedback you get.
awesome, awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. So with that as well, so you've shown us what you have at the moment. So what's in the horizon for Hegel AI? Any exciting new features in the pipeline here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned that we're launching our paid product later this month, and that'll be an enterprise version of our playground with support for persistence and collaboration and more evaluation features. And in the next few months, we'll be launching more components of a developer platform for LLM based applications, from experimentation and evaluation to other parts of developers' workflows as well.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, there's a lot of things to look forward to
Yeah.
for folks, and yeah, that's interesting. Definitely, if you're listening and this, you're building stuff with LLMs, definitely check out Hegel AI and try out the open source versions and see, might help you out throughout your process of building here. So I like asking this question. So from your vantage point, at Hegel AI specifically, where do you see the AI field heading? I know it's a very loaded question, but you can unpack it however you feel like.
Yeah, it's a loaded question and it's a broad question. Well, one thing I will say is I hear a lot of people saying that they think that prompt engineering is just a fad and that it's going to go away once models get sufficiently intelligent. But I think that we're always going to want to tweak our inputs to get better outputs, that that's just part of AI engineering. And so I think that prompt engineering is going to be a really important part of leveraging these models into the future, far into the future. And that's my AI hot take.
There you go. There you go, folks. You have the hot take there. I think I agree with you on that. Although we things change a lot in the previous 6 months. I think some
Yeah.
of the assumptions I had have been proven wrong, some of them have come up right, and I've been surprised as well. So it's definitely interesting to see where the field is going to head into in the next even 6 months or 3 months from now.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I'm definitely making a prediction. Things could totally change tomorrow, but one thing I believe is that prompt engineering will stick around as these models get more powerful.
Yes, absolutely. The English as the language, the programming language. So awesome.
Absolutely.
So another one of my favorite questions. What are your go-to sources for staying up to date in AI? I know for me, I really lean on Twitter and some blogs. So I would like to hear where do you keep up to date with your AI news?
Yeah, so every morning I check Hacker News. That's probably my number one news source at this point. And then in terms of newsletters, I think Ben's Bytes and TLDR are two good ones, and I subscribe to both of those. So that's
Nice,
what I'd recommend for AI news.
nice, awesome. That's some good variety there, and some popular ones that I've heard before.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks are trying to learn about this as well, and a lot of people sometimes are not sure. Where do I get my up to date news? And this is great resources that you shared there as well. So yeah, absolutely. And I know it's Hacktoberfest. We've mentioned it. So how can the community, everybody listening here, how can they contribute or engage with Hegel AI?
Yeah, so if you want to contribute, use the product, or raise a PR, our repo is at Hegel AI. That's HEGELAI /prompt tools, PROMPT TOOLS. We're open to PRs for integrations with new LLMs, vector databases. If you want to add new evaluation metrics or anything you can think of, we're open to taking a look. So, yeah, would love to get some help from the community.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let's see on the community. Let's see our viewers if they have any questions. And I see a lot of people still here from Fabio, Brazil. So Emilio had a question. Yeah. So does the meeting will the meeting be available for later? Yes, this meeting is live and it will be persistent throughout. It will be on our YouTube channel on Streamlit and also on our LinkedIn and Twitter. So you'll be able to view this afterwards as well and replay it. So feel free to do that. And yes, please keep the questions coming if you have any questions.
Yeah,
Yeah, Kyle Berry mentioned prompt engineering plus retrieval augmented generation as he put the greater than a bunch of them than fine tuning. Interesting.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting to see which of those will be more effective, and it might be different for different use cases. I think both of them will need to be supported, and we treat both of them as first-class citizens in our playground. So if you want to experiment with different fine-tuned models, we support that for Replicate and OpenAI. But if you want to just support prompt engineering, we do that too.
Awesome. Yeah, you're one stop shop. So if I think that this covers the basis pretty well.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and perpendicular AI responding to Kyle, tuning hyperparameters. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we've got some comments going on there. We don't have any more questions. If anybody still has any question, please feel free to add it in the comments for a guest. And I think you did pretty good explaining everything, so maybe that's why we don't have any questions. That's
Thanks, guys.
amazing. Yeah, but if there's no more questions, I want to thank you, Stephen, for joining us today. This was really nice to be able to hear about Hegel AI and what you're building there and how our community can benefit from it. And also, we also hope the audience that you gained some valuable insights today and learned about how you can supercharge your development process here with Hegel AI. So without as we close out, is there anything else you want to say before we close out, Stephen?
Just that would love to see people's contributions to the repo if you think things are missing, open issues or PRs. But yeah, would love to get feedback from the community. You can hop in the Discord and DM us as well. Looking forward to hearing people's thoughts.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and we got one more comment from Kyle Berry. Cool demo. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks,
Thank
Cal.
you. Yeah, thank you, Kyle. Thank you for coming up. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, so with that, folks, don't forget to follow us on social. We are on YouTube, Twitter, whatever you subscribe your news. Please follow us there. Follow Eagle AI as well to get the most up to date updates or whenever we go live in the next few weeks. Please follow us there. And also, until next time, see you and happy streamliting. Goodbye.